Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the session at the 20th Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity. We sincerely appreciate our guests and participants for taking the time to join us this afternoon. My name is Soon Lee, the Program Officer at the ASEAN Korea Center, and it is my great pleasure to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for today's session titled Beyond Boundaries, Strengthening ASEAN-Korea Synergies under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership organized by the ASEAN Korea Center. This year, it is all the more meaningful in that the ASEAN Korea Center organizes the session at the Jeju Forum for the first time ever in the hope that the session will provide a platform for top experts on ASEAN-Korea relations to engage in an in-depth discussion on the evolving ASEAN-Korea partnership. As you all may know, ASEAN and Korea elevated their relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership last year, marking a pivotal milestone in the dialogue relations. Now, let us begin the session by inviting His Excellency Kim Jae-shin, Secretary General of the ASEAN Korea Center, for his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a big round of applause.
His Excellency Lee Jang-keun, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to ASEAN, Her Excellency Maria Teresa Ison de Vega, Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines to Korea, His Excellency Songkhan Luangmunin턴, Ambassador of the Lao PL to Korea, His Excellency Dato Mohamed Zangluni bin Kari, Ambassador of Malaysia to Korea, His Excellency Tani Sangat, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Thailand to Korea, ASEAN ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this special session, and I'm especially delighted to meet you here in Jeju, the most beautiful place in Korea. As you may know, this year's Jeju Forum is particularly meaningful, as this is the first time for the ASEAN Korea Center to organize our own session at the Jeju Forum. The Jeju Forum serves as a distinguished platform that convenes global thought leaders, policymakers, and scholars from around the world. I am truly honored to take part in this important gathering, the 20th Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity. Under the theme, Beyond Boundaries, Strengthening ASEAN-Korea Synergies under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, today's session comes at a critical juncture in our shared journey toward a more inclusive and strategic path forward. We are honored by the presence of all ASEAN ambassadors to Korea and Korean ambassadors to ASEAN. Their insights, grounded in diplomatic experience and deep regional understanding, adds significance to today's session. Distinguished guests, this year marks the full-fledged implementation of the ASEAN-Korea Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, CSP, which was formally launched in 2024. The elevation to a CSP underscores the enduring and mutually trusted partnership cultivated over the past 3 decades, encompassing a wide range of areas, including the economy, trade and investment, social-cultural cooperation, and people-to-people exchanges. With the participation of our esteemed speakers, true experts in ASEAN-Korea relations, this session could not be more timely as we seek to explore practical, comprehensive, and forward-looking ways to deepen our cooperation in this new chapter of our partnership. Furthermore, in a year of holy crisis, the world around us is undergoing rapid and unprecedented change. We are witnessing profound geopolitical shifts, transformative technological advancements, and an increasingly complex and uncertain global landscape. In such a dynamic and turbulent environment, strengthening ASEAN-Korea cooperation is more vital than ever. Amid this rapidly evolving landscape, political developments are also unfolding within Korea. A presidential election is scheduled for next week, and the new administration is expected to take office. It is certain that regardless of the outcome, Korea's unwavering commitment to ASEAN will remain steadfast. The incoming government is expected to further advance policies that effectively implement the comprehensive strategic partnership and deepen cooperation with the ASEAN across all sectors. Distinguished guests, the ASEAN Korea Center has long championed people-to-people exchanges, economic cooperation, and mutual cultural understanding between ASEAN and Korea. I am confident that this form of practical cooperation will continue to yield tangible benefits for our people and enhance both the substance and the resilience of ASEAN-Korea relations. In this regard, Jeju holds particular significance for the ASEAN-Korea Center and our efforts to strengthen regional cooperation. As a symbolic gateway for peace and sustainability, Jeju has become a second home for the center, a place where a number of meaningful initiatives have been implemented to further enhance ASEAN-Korea relations. Within the Jeju International Peace Center, we established the Jeju ASEAN Hall and the ASEAN Culture and Tourism Book Corner to provide space for cultural exchange, academic research, and greater public awareness of ASEAN. Furthermore, the Jeju Ole Trail Route 8, ASEAN Korea Ole, which held its official unveiling ceremony last year, offers a tangible expression of the spirit of connection, mutual respect, and harmony that underpins our partnership. In closing, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our esteemed speakers, participants, and the organizers of the Jeju Forum for their dedication in making this important session possible. I look forward to a vibrant and meaningful discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary General, for your warm opening remarks and for extending your best wishes for today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin our discussion under the theme of Beyond Boundaries, Strengthening ASEAN-Korea Synergies under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Today, we are privileged to have His Excellency Lee Jang-geun, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to ASEAN, as our moderator. He is a seasoned career diplomat of the Republic of Korea with more than 30 years of service in international relations. Previously served as Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative at the Korean Permanent Mission to United Nations Office and other international organizations in Geneva, and Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the People's Republic of Bangladesh. He has been serving as the Ambassador of Korea to ASEAN since May 2023. Our panelists include 4 ASEAN ambassadors to Korea: Her Excellency Maria Teresa Dijon de Vega, Ambassador of the Philippines to Korea. She is a 30-year veteran in the Philippine Foreign Service, having served as Ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany and Consul General in New York. She's been the Ambassador to Korea since March 2023. His Excellency Luangmunin턴, the Ambassador of the Lao PDR to Korea, a career diplomat with over 35 years of experience, is also joining us today. Prior to his mission to Korea, he served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Lao PDR to the Republic of the Philippines. His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Zanuni Khalid, Ambassador of Malaysia to Korea, joined the Malaysian Foreign Service in 1992. His Excellency has been the Malaysian Ambassador to Vietnam and France before serving in Korea. Last but not least, His Excellency Tanisangat, Ambassador of Thailand to Korea since May 2024, has previously served as Ambassador to the United States and Vietnam, as well as Consul General in Los Angeles. With his extensive experience, I expect today's discussion to be fruitful and productive. Without further ado, let me invite 5 excellencies to the stage for the session. Please welcome them with a warm round of applause. Thank you, Excellencies. And that's Louis. I'd like to hand over the floor to you. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jang-Geun Lee. I just arrived from Jakarta this afternoon, and during the course, my voice get dry, and my condition looks not that excellent this evening. But it is my really big privilege and also pleasure to play as a moderator on this very important session about my work, about ASEAN and Korea relations. And we have very interesting panelists, four panelists. Actually, it looks like ambassadors panel rather than ASEAN panel or ASEAN discussions. So for this, I'm very thankful also for the ASEAN Korea Center and Secretary General Kim Jae-shin for hosting and organizing this very meaningful session. Not only meaningful because it is about my and our work, but also meaningful because of the timing and the context of the discussion that we will have today with the theme of beyond boundaries and strengthening ASEAN-Korea synergies under the comprehensive strategic partnership. I'm especially honored because I was the one who was heavily, closely involved during the course of this establishment of CSP last year, and we worked very hard with our ASEAN colleagues for this leaders' declaration for this establishment of the CSP. So we have this important occasion and theme on the South Korea and ASEAN relations, and also now, as you know, just a few days ago, ASEAN and the ASEAN Summit adopted a new ASEAN Vision 2045, together with 4 strategic plans. I could not read the whole text yet, but this the ASEAN Vision document for 2045 is 158 pages with 33 strategic goals and more than 500 strategic measures. Very detailed, very ambitious plan we have. And after the establishment of CSP, we also have this new context of Korea-ASEAN relations for the future of these two, Korea and ASEAN, for the next 20 or more years. And in addition to that, as Secretary General Kim Jae-shin already mentioned, we are in the middle of a continuously evolving complex geopolitical situation. And in tiding over this situation, well, we have to cooperate, we have to collaborate, and how to collaborate, and how to get over these difficult times and challenges together. That will be also one very important context that we will have this discussion today. And another important context, I think, is the coming new government next week. So by next week this time, we will have a new government, new president. And obviously, this new government will look forward new strategies and also policy priorities. And ASEAN will be obviously a very important part of the coming government foreign policy as well. So now we are in this context, and today we will have very interesting discussions, and I'm very happy to hear with colleague ambassadors and this occasion to hear their perspectives from their own experience on ASEAN-Korea relations. And I will have 3 rounds of questions to the ambassadors. I will focus on 3 main topics. First is about the CSP, the significance of CSP, and the meaning of CSP for the future of Korea-ASEAN relations. That will be the first part of my questions to the ambassadors. And second subject will be the synergy between ASEAN bilateral and ASEAN multilateral. I'm on the side of ASEAN multilateral, but these ambassadors are on the side of ASEAN bilateral. So what I believe important is the synergies between this bilateral diplomacy and also this more ASEAN multilateral diplomacy. The synergy, I think it is important. So it will be interesting to hear from the investors on this subject. And the third and last subject I will focus this discussion will be the public perception, especially ASEAN public perceptions on Korea-ASEAN relations. That will be three subject that I will focus this discussion. And I would like to ask our panel investors to limit the interventions and comments and presentation, if possible, within 3 minutes. Then we can have a more effective and full informative dialogue in the remaining about 1 hour. So I will start with the first subject, the meaning of the CSP. So CSP was established last year. Then I'd like to ask each ambassador here, what do you think of the significance of this CSP that formed another landmark between ASEAN and Korea, and what is the importance of this CSP for the future Korea-ASEAN relations? And in that regard, what are your country's priorities in developing Korea-ASEAN relations for the next decades? What will be your country's priorities? Like we have Philippine ambassador who will chair next year ASEAN, and we have our ambassador who chaired ASEAN last year. We have Malaysian ambassador who is chairing this year's ASEAN, and also we have Thai ambassador who is a country coordinator for Korea in Korea-ASEAN relations. So very, very interesting combination. So with that, I would like to ask first Ambassador Maria Teresa about your perspectives and your experiences. Anything you can say about this subject?
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lee. First of all, a pleasant afternoon to everyone, and sincerest congratulations to Secretary General Kim and the entire AKC team for being a session organizer during actually another milestone year for the Jeju Forum, which is marking its 20th anniversary, and also for the opportunity to be part of this panel as I close out 4 years of service as a Philippine ambassador to Korea, to add my 2 cents worth. First, on the questions of the significance of the CSP, I look at it around four broad aspects. The CSP is, of course, another milestone adopted during a milestone year for ASEAN-Korea relations, the 35th anniversary of the dialogue partnership last year. And I'd like to divide it into 4 broad aspects. The first is elevated engagement. The CSP allows us to institutionalize a more robust framework for cooperation between ASEAN and Korea in many areas of common and mutual concern, on digitalization, on connectivity, on green growth, on public health, maritime cooperation, and human capital development. The other aspect is working towards a shared regional vision. As mentioned by Ambassador Lee earlier, the CSP allows for in an institutionalized framework and platform to synergize with ASEAN's outlook on the Indo-Pacific, the AOIP, and Korea's own Indo-Pacific strategy, and promoting a free, open, and prosperous and inclusive region. And now we add the ASEAN Vision 2045 as yet another layer where we can achieve synergy and move towards greater cooperation and engagement in the region. The third significance, I believe, of the CSP would be on the aspect of resilience and sustainability. The CSP supports all our efforts, our collective efforts in the region, both on the multilateral sphere and also the bilateral sphere, in terms of joint responses to regional and global challenges, including climate change, economic disruptions, keeping the global value chain intact and working, food security, public health and pandemics, and of course in addressing the geopolitical dynamics, which at this point in time is something which is in flux, and that's actually even an understatement. And the fourth, I think, the value of the CSP is in terms of future orientation, setting the stage for future orientation, in that it ensures a more long-term and strategic alignment and vision for the dialogue partnership, which enables both ASEAN and Korea to co-develop innovative and inclusive solutions to the many challenges we face. And just this morning at the Jejuforum's Leaders Forum, former Philippine President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo talked about this very important aspect of innovation, that countries should come together to innovate for the disadvantaged, to innovate in terms of managing dangers and disasters, and innovate in terms of finding new pathways for discourse among nations. As she said it, let's talk before we shoot. So all these things, I think, are embodied in some measure in different ways in the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. That being said, of course, the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. So along with the CSP, the POA, the Program of Action, also has to reflect the actual impact of the CSP. And in terms of the second part of the question, Ambassador Lee, of course, for the Philippines, which is the incoming chair of ASEAN in 2025, we look forward to the support and engagement of our ASEAN partners and Korea, of course, is a very important dialogue partner in moving our priority interests and themes forward in terms of maritime security, in terms of connectivity, human capital development, people-to-people connections, and of course, in building a people-centered and people-oriented region, making sure also in terms of the economic sphere that we support and enable and empower the MSME sector, which is very important for ASEAN. But as I said, we will have to continue working on the POA to make sure that the vision comes to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Teresa, for this thoughtful categorization of the four meanings of the CSP. And as one of the longest-serving ASEAN ambassadors in Seoul, both Ambassador Teresa and I also expect Ambassador Songkane, during your period, all this happened, you have observed all this process from CASI to the establishment of the CSP, so it will be interesting to hear from you about your perceptions and views on this subject. Ambassador.
Thank you, Ambassador Lee. Thank you, SG Kim, for inviting me to attend this panel discussion. I think this is my first panel this that I ever attend. Sorry, my contribution might not as so comprehensive as my friend Tess. But certainly I'll try to compare in another perspective. Because I don't want to talk much about CSP because our friends go home. He's the one also directly involved with the CSP. But I think CSP for ASEAN Korea is the highest partnership that we can ever have with our external partners. This is the importance that ASEAN given to Korea. Because we see Korea is important for ASEAN, so Korea also seeing ASEAN as important partner. This is first significance that I see. But CSP is not come out of the blue. For me, it's 35 years of building relationships. From a very small, moderate level of cooperation. I used to work in ASEAN for 6 years, ASEAN partner, back in the old days. I left in 2008, but I can see that the level of cooperation between Korea and ASEAN has significantly increased. You know, back in 2004, we have ASEAN plus 3, ASEAN Korea, but Korea back then is we can consider a minor partner, you know, among plus 3. Because you are squeezing in between China and Japan, always. When we discuss any kind of activities in ASEAN plus 3, they are competing. That China and Japan always have many programs, projects, proposals. And Korea, back then, because of your level of economic development, it's not the same right now. That's why I see that CSP comes from 30 years of joining together between ASEAN and Korea. Another important point that I want to point out, CSP, this is only the big framework for us to work together, but the most important is going to be approved this year by Malaysia and ASEAN, the plan of action. This is more important because it's going to be detailed. Any kind of, I think it's covering all areas of cooperation. I didn't see it. You have seen it, Ambassador. You know better than me, but I think it's going to cover all areas of our cooperation in the future, as well as also it's in line with our vision 2045. I'm sure because ASEAN want to do it. Not only with Korea, we want to do it with all our partners so that our vision 2045 in the next 20 years is going to be in line with our cooperation with our partners and external partners. I think another important point that I would like to emphasize is that plan of action cannot be implemented without funding. But I saw that, since GACIS and the new Southern Policy GACIS, every year, funding for APCF, ASEAN Korea Cooperation Fund, every year increased. And I read recently, 27 is going to be double. That's what's important for not only for Laos, but for ASEAN as a whole. Seeing this, we not only have a plan of action for our joint cooperation, but we have a funding to support the implementation. And certainly there will be a mechanism to follow up, to monitor the implementation on which areas to cover. But certainly, Ambassador, you may know that the political security cooperation sometimes it might be slowed down a bit because of the ASEAN ways of doing things. We do it at a comfortable level to everyone. I think we have a bright future for our economic cooperation because it's very important in this very challenging time for every one of us, ASEAN and Korea. Economic cooperation within the framework of POA to implement CSP is going to be an important part of us. Certainly, the cultural cooperation and cross-cutting issue is very important for everything. This is my contribution that I see the importance of CSP for us in the future. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Songkane, and both Ambassador Songkane and also Ambassador Teresa talked about the POA, which is an important follow-up of this CSP, and now this negotiation is undergoing very intensively. We have finished this third round of negotiation at the working level in Jakarta. So almost 70% of the text is done, and we are working very hard, and hopefully can be finished, finalized before or by the foreign ministers meeting in July. So now I'd like to turn to Ambassador Jamuni for his insights as a experienced diplomat and also as a person who have involved in Korea-ASEAN relations back in the Malaysian Foreign Ministry. So, what is your views on these questions, Ambassador Jamuni?
Thank you, Ambassador Lee, and I also would like to thank the organizers of the forum, especially the AKC for inviting me to this session. Well, back to the question, it's just as Ambassador Maria has mentioned, the elevation of ASEAN-Korea relations to CSP marks a historic milestone in a relationship that has grown steadily since the dialogue relations were first established in 1989. The CSP represents more than just a diplomatic level. It is essentially a political commitment to elevate cooperation across a broader, deeper, and more strategic spectrum. It is a reflection of a mutual trust, actually, and shared interest in peace, security, sustainable development, and regional integration, among others. It is also a manifestation of Korea's belief in ASEAN centrality in regional architecture vis-à-vis various mechanisms such as ARF, EAS, and so on and so forth. And likewise, it is a reflection of Korea's stature as a reliable and trusted partner in ASEAN in shaping a peaceful, rules-based Indo-Pacific region. The importance of CSP, in my opinion, is that the elevation of the dialogue relations marks the highest level of bilateral relations, short of an alliance. It is a symbol of a deepening and widening of relations, as I mentioned. And CSP essentially serves as a structured platform to address the evolving challenges and opportunities. The joint statement on CSP with the ROK outlines three guiding principles, which are advancing peace and security for all, building a smarter, more sustainable, resilient, and connected future, and creating a social cultural platform for young and future generations. To illustrate, against the backdrop of the ongoing geopolitical and economic uncertainties in the era of Trump 2.0, the letter and the spirit of CSP provides a much needed guidance on how ASEAN should maneuver. One, its strategic alignment in a shifting geopolitical landscapes. Two, the resilient and inclusive economic growth. And three, the people-to-people connectivity. And the expectation from all ASEAN countries and also Republic of Korea as far as CSP is concerned, we would like to see an enhanced political and security cooperation vis-à-vis support for ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, among others, green and sustainable development vis-à-vis joint initiatives on carbon neutrality, renewable energy, and biodiversity, and also inclusive economic recovery vis-à-vis MSMEs, support digital skills training, and inclusive finance. So that's my 2 cents worth for now.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Jamuni. And now I'd like to turn to Ambassador Dani Zangat, the newest ambassador among ASEAN ambassadors in Seoul. What is your views and perspective on these questions, Ambassador Dani?
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lee. Thank you, AKC, for inviting me. I would have to say that ASEAN Career Center is, in my view, in my experience, is probably the most active ASEAN center that I have experienced. And I appreciate what ASEAN Career Center here does for us and with us. And it's very useful. And I think we already discussed that we can do much more to raise the awareness and usefulness of ASEAN among the Korean public. And that's something that we can do all together. On the CSP, I think CSP was a new chapter in the dialogue between ASEAN and the ROK. We expect that this elevation will both expand and deepen our already close collaboration, leading to a more meaningful, substantive, and mutually beneficial outcomes for both sides. We look forward to the implementation of all three pillars of the CSP that is based on mutual trust, mutual respect, mutual benefit, and the development of the new ASEAN ROK Plan of Action 2026-2030, which will guide our future cooperation. We also expect the CSP to further the ROK support for ASEAN centrality and the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific through various ASEAN-led mechanisms. As a current country coordinator, Thailand hosted the second ASEAN ROK dialogue in May in Bangkok. The dialogue served as an effective opportunity to push forward our comprehensive strategic partnership, especially in the areas of innovation and green economy. We were pleased to welcome Deputy Minister Chang Wan, Deputy Minister for Political Affairs and Song Leader of the ROK in Bangkok for this dialogue. Looking forward to the future, we see a few points that we should prioritize the advancement of ASEAN-ROK cooperation. Number one, we look to expand the cooperation between ASEAN and the ROK in addressing non-traditional security issues, especially the cybersecurity through the ASEAN Cyber Shield Project, responsible for the use of AI and AI governance, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and combating transnational crime, which is a huge issue in not only our region, but in more broader in the world. We also hope to push for the full and effective implementation of RCEP, and we are optimistic about the upcoming ASEAN-ROK FTA upgrade negotiations in 2026, which will help us to adapt our trade cooperation in the new and volatile global trade environment. Number three, we wish to expand the cooperation between us on supporting MSMEs, startups, youth, and women's business empowerment through joint capacity building events and activities. In particular, we intend to deepen the collaboration between ASEAN and the ROK in promoting a sustainable and inclusive digital transformation, especially through the launch of Korea ASEAN Digital Academy and the implementation of Korea ASEAN Digital Innovation Flagship project. Also, we look forward to developing smart cities through cooperation on the ASEAN Smart Cities Network and advancing sustainable urban development, including on future mobility, which is a big trend now, and also promoting future industries. We would like to see the prioritization of our cooperation in protecting the environment as well through CSP by adapting to and mitigating climate change, including the jointly tackling of transboundary haze pollution and of the digital health transformation as well, especially through the utilization of APFI for regional health resilience. Underline the conviction that ASEAN and the ROK can and must do more together to promote security, sustainability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, especially on mainland Southeast Asia. We would love to see a more emphasis, a more support on Korea to promote our connectivity between ASEAN countries, physical and non-physical connectivity, how immigration, customs, enforcement, border control, our flows of people and goods can be improved among our countries, not only on mainland Southeast Asia, but also in the maritime area as well. We also encourage the incoming our UK government to continue to attach importance to ASEAN as one of the pillars of the ROK's foreign policy and strategy in the Indo-Pacific. Lastly, ASEAN can play an important role as a bridge builder for peace on the Korean Peninsula through ASEAN-led mechanisms such as the ARF, ASEAN Regional Forum, and East Asia Summit, which both comprise key platforms for constructive dialogue and discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tani. Actually, Thailand is playing a very important role in the relations between Korea and ASEAN because Thailand is serving as country coordinator for Korea from last year until early 2027. So we pretty much depend on Thailand in strengthening the ties between Korea and ASEAN. For the interest of our time, I'd like to hear from you all these other two subjects as well. So I would like to move on to the next question I have is about the synergy between ASEAN bilateral and ASEAN multilateral diplomacy. And all investors emphasized about the importance of implementation. CSP is established. We have POA, but it should be implemented. How it will be implemented will be in two dimensions, in bilateral way and in multilateral way as well. So there are two dimensions in ASEAN-Korea relations in implementing CSP. But to me, as an investor to ASEAN, the synergy, the connection, linkage between this bilateral and multilateral ASEAN cooperation and diplomacy, those to be important. And in that regard, I'd like to ask investors about your views and even your experience, how it can create and also how we can maximize this synergy between ASEAN multilateral and ASEAN bilateral. And also, in this regard, if you have any experience while you are working in Seoul about this synergy-related matter, or any kind of insight or experience, if you can share, it will be very appreciated. And Mr. Teresa.
Thank you, Ambassador Lee. I must confess, when I was given this second question, it was the question that stumped me the most because oftentimes in our work as diplomats, assigned here, essentially being bilateral ambassadors, nurturing, enhancing a bilateral relationship, sometimes we often lose sight of the impact and the synergy and the alignment with regional issues, regional concerns, regional guideposts, if you will, in terms of our membership in ASEAN. So this was the question which stumped me the most, but I think it's a very important question. Going back to the POA, I think the POA is indicative of how much the regional vision, the ASEAN layer, informs also the bilateral and vice versa. The latest POA, which ends this year, 2021 to 2025, had, according to the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta, a 92.2% implementation rate, which is pretty high. But there's also that 7.8%, which means that initiatives which fall under that remaining percentage, which did not quite work out. And so there must be ways to build better synergy, make it more efficient, make it more impactful. And when you look at the breakdown of the POA, the latest, the ongoing POA, which will end soon, it's about how many, 500 or so plus projects, 375 of which were jointly proposed by ASEAN and Korea, 61 from the ASEAN member countries bilaterally, and about 181 initiated by Korea. So I think it's important to have better balance here and to make sure that the initiatives, the projects under the POA reflect the actual needs and the actual impact for all of the ASEAN member countries, and thereby further enhancing and enriching the dialogue partnership. But that being said, I think there's ample room for building synergy. For example, policy alignment between bilateral concerns and interests and our commitments under ASEAN, and how we move and operate and engage within the ASEAN context. I think that's very important. I think there's also opportunity for bilateral and multilateral synergy in best practices sharing. Just look at the POA. Which bilateral engagements or initiatives have worked, and can they be replicated regionally or even in smaller aspects or units of the regional whole? For example, say in the Mekong River component, or in the BIMP IAGA. So which bilateral initiatives have worked and which can be replicated? So I think there's ample room for synergy there. And then coordinated dialogues. And I think the third country ASEAN committees play a very important role in this aspect. I often think, what can the ACS, in our case, for example, do more? I think we have a very important role in facilitating a more coherent understanding of what ASEAN is and how ASEAN works, and what is at stake in ASEAN in terms of the regional interests, the regional concerns, and the concerns of the individual member countries. That's easier said than done. I really think that the ASEAN story is a very compelling story, but perhaps we have not done enough to tell that story and to see the value in how ASEAN has evolved over the decades, and how it has helped to nurture an area of growth, prosperity, relative security and peace, and building a region which is inclusive and people-centered and people-oriented. I think we need to tell that story more effectively, and I think that's a role that, I hope that every ASEAN diplomat takes to heart. But I think there are opportunities for that, where the bilateral and the multilateral can merge and can benefit a wider range of sectors within the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teresa, for very concrete suggestions about how to make synergy, policy alliance, and best practice sharing, coordinated dialogue is all concrete idea you presented, and thank you for that. And now I'd like to turn this mic to Mr. Songkane for your thoughts. Investor.
SG, this question might be disappointing of mine. My answer might not be so good, but I'll try to do my best. I did not answer your on Laos priority in the last question in CSP, because I want to give the example in this synergy between multilateral and bilateral. I think multilateral and bilateral is complementarity. That's a very important point that we should know. And certainly as a policy decision makers in our country, in the foreign ministry, we try to incorporate our national priority in each, both bilateral and multilateral. In multilateral, last year you can see our priority always connectivity and resilience, narrow development gap, and green sustainable environment. This is very important focus for Laos government. And connectivity, why? Because we always land up. We want to be able to connect in the region and in the world. That's why the connectivity in CSP or even in ASEAN Mission 2045 is there. Narrow development gap is going to be there. It's always there. It's connecting, narrow development gap is connecting with our poverty eradication. That's for ASEAN multilateral. But for us as ambassador here in Korea, certainly we have limited capability to do our policy implementation within Korea in the term of bilateral, but we try our best. For example, we try to encourage investors from Korea to go to our country to invest as a production base so that they can produce the products in Laos, for example, which have a very small limited market, so that we produce there and selling to our neighboring countries. This is how we see connectivity, complementarity between multilateral and bilateral. That's one point that I want to mention. Infrastructure Development Fund, I mean EDCF. We gave a lot of EDCF loans, 500 million. This is for our infrastructure within Laos, because we want to be able to connect. It's complement with ASEAN connectivity. That's how I see this kind of actual works as ambassador in Korea, trying to implement ASEAN multilateral policy. But certainly you are in multilateral, you are not able to see directly the outcome of how it affects the bilateral cooperation. But this is how it's work. I just want to have one wish. I know Korea also have your interest in CSP, in POA. You want to put your emphasis there. But certainly our ASEAN friends, all 10 countries, they are trying to have a lot of inputs to be able to implement POA in responding to the bilateral interests. I think I want to mention here that I'm glad that Korea doesn't combine everything together in lump sum for funding. For example, our Japanese colleague, they always combine everything and consider that this is ASEAN fund, even though it's fall under bilateral. But you are separating. You know exactly this is fall under bilateral, this is fall under ASEAN. But Japan, they combine everything together. That's how. But I don't encourage you to do the same like Japan. Huh? That's the complementarity, the synergies that I see I can share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Songkane. You actually encouraged me to do the similar like Japan or Korea. Good. So now I'd like to ask Mr. Jang Nuni for your perspective on this.
Thank you. Well, as mentioned by Ambassador Songkane, actually the synergy between ASEAN bilateral and ASEAN multilateral cooperation is not mutually exclusive. They are and should be mutually reinforcing. How to maximize the synergy? Basically, many of the ASEAN most impactful initiatives have their roots in bilateral cooperation. For example, Malaysia and South Korea's cooperation on green technology and smart cities can serve as a model for regional programs under ASEAN Smart Cities Network or ASEAN Korea Carbon Neutrality Center. We also should leverage on ASEAN's readiness to promote ASEAN centrality with flexibility, a concept which allows dialogue partners to engage ASEAN member states bilaterally while still supporting regional platforms. Just to illustrate, South Korea has bilateral arrangements with Malaysia and Vietnam on hydrogen energy, which can be harmonized under existing regional frameworks such as the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, APAEC. Ambassador Maria Teresa just alluded to the works of ASEAN Committee in Seoul. I just want to elaborate a little bit on that. actually ASEAN committee in Seoul is an informal, is informal in nature. Notwithstanding the informal characteristic, ACS could play some vital bridging roles in amplifying the presence of ASEAN in the host country, which include the coordination and the engagement with local stakeholders, government bodies, industries, think tanks, and academia, etc. And it also amplifies ASEAN identity and awareness through exhibitions and social programs by actively engaging in youth and cultural diplomacy. ACS could serve as a clearinghouse for success stories from ASEAN South Korea bilateral engagements and explore pathways to scale this into regional models. Well, every 6 months, the chairmanship of ACS rotates. The chair has the responsibility to come up with activities that would involve all member states to make ASEAN more well known in the host country. When Malaysia took over the role of ACS chair at the beginning of the year, we came up with at least 3 activities that encompasses political, economic, and social cultural pillars of ASEAN. While I have to admit these are not as many as what have been done under the previous chair, which is the Philippines, due to her robustness, industriousness in getting all the activities in action. We think that these activities suffice for now due to the hectic schedule of most of the ASEAN ambassadors in Seoul. The programs that we have come up with just illustrates the point. Actually, one is the sharing session with the Sejong Institute on the topic Navigating the Future, Strengthening ASEAN-Korea Cooperation in Changing Global Landscape. The second one is the ASEAN Symposium 2025. This is actually a bottom-up program that assembles all student associations of ASEAN countries and Timor-Leste, and also Korean students to discuss the future of ASEAN through their lenses. And lastly, the visit to Hyundai Nanyang R&D Center, just to satisfy the economic pillar. All these activities are on top of those carried out by the AKC. I have to mention here that we are very lucky to have AKC that come up with a lot of good programs because from my own experience working in other countries that didn't have ASEAN center in those countries. So the ASEAN committee in the third countries, in those countries, they have to find out on their own ways and their own means of how to sustain the activities and also how to develop the programs. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samini, for explaining the details about what you call ACS, ASEAN Committee in Seoul. Actually, I don't think many Koreans know about this. ASEAN Committee in third countries ASEAN mechanism clearly stipulated in the ASEAN Charter. So according to ASEAN Charter, ASEAN countries, ASEAN ambassadors in third countries should form this committee and have ASEAN activities together. And it was very helpful to hear the Seoul ASEAN Committee's activities in a detailed way. Now I'd like to turn to Mr. Tani for your thought on this subject.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lee. I'd just like to add on to my colleagues about bilateral and regional multilateral diplomacy between ASEAN and our bilateral relationship with Korea. Yes, our bilateral relationship between Thailand and Korea have been forged over a long period of time. Since Korean War, and that, along with relations between Korea and other member states of ASEAN, have formed a very solid foundation for ASEAN-Korea relationship. We cannot deny that. And yes, I agree with Dr. Saruni that ASEAN ASC in Seoul also promotes and synergizes the relationship between ASEAN and Korea as well. But you asked us to share about our past experience. Recently, before I arrived in Seoul, it was the ASCW in Washington who had to push our host country to form ASEAN-US Center. And we were successful in doing that. It was a joint effort, and we had to exert quite a bit of effort in the big capital, global capital, as you know. And now I think it's ongoing, but I mentioned again and again, there's a minor part of AKC here again, so I'm quite proud of what we're doing here. I have to admit that I have very little experience in ASEAN affairs, except for when I was director. I was responsible for bilateral relationship with our neighboring countries for several years. And later on, as Deputy Director General, responsible for bilateral relationship for all of ASEAN countries. We came up, we see our work in our East Asian Affairs Department as, self-proclaimed most critical in MOFA, Thailand. ASEAN Department is a separate department. They talk shop. But we also see ourselves as our work as building blocks of ASEAN. Let me give you concrete examples. In East Asian Affairs Department, when I was director, we came up with a number of initiatives. We pushed, other than supporting our political bilateral relationship between our leadership, our foreign ministry, other ministries, we also have projects that we push as hard as we can, as hard as we could, to promote connectivity, physical connectivity. We built 6 bridges in Laos, and I'm very proud that I had a part in at least 2 bridges that were built, of 3. With Cambodia, we built another bridge, and a lot of work goes into planning a bridge, area around it, our cooperation in planning our common control area, our efforts to harmonize our immigration, how we harmonize our customs. We still have a lot of work to do among ASEAN countries, especially on the mainland. We have a lot of work to do in all around Thailand and our neighboring countries. We came up with the Mekong Friendship Project. It is a project that brought our youths together from all our mainland Southeast Asia countries and give them a task of finding an issue or a problem, and solve it together. They travel together, they spend time learning about the strengths, the advantages, disadvantages of their own country, of their neighbors. For example, children, young students from Cambodia would travel from all these children would travel to Angkor Wat to learn what you're proud of, and also learn about your issues, your problems. In Thailand as well, in Laos, in Myanmar. So we learn together. It's like a youth camp that we implemented this project for a number of years, and we formed long-lasting relationship for ASEAN nationals. So we like to see that this as a building block of ASEAN people-to-people relationship. We also have labor capacity building for Thailand and our neighboring countries to build build up the capacity of workers in Thailand and in our neighboring countries to meet the requirements of investors, of entrepreneurs in our neighboring countries and in Thailand as well. So these are the building blocks of ASEAN that we see. That's all my experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tani. Now I see that we have about 25 minutes left, and I hope to have at least 10 minutes of question and answer session. Anyway, finally, I think this is also a very important subject that I would like to hear from you about this aspect of public perception within ASEAN countries on Korea and Korea-ASEAN relations. The reason why I came up with this question is from this Singapore-based ASEAN think tank, ISAS, Yusuf Isaac Institute. Every year it publishes the status of Southeast Asia survey, which is about the Southeast Asian public's perception on their relations with external partners, major external partners, including China, Japan, Korea, Australia, US, and Korea as well. So, but if I read this latest report and also last year's report, Korea's score ranked there is surprisingly low. So it's average less than 3%, and in many cases it's less than 1%. So I hear very often the excellent relationship between Korea and ASEAN, but when it comes to this report, the surprising low, somewhat disappointing. So I thought that, wow, we are doing it the right way. Why not? What should we do? So this seems to be some fundamental questions, even though we do a lot of work, but if it is not reach to the people, and if it is not impact the people's perception, maybe there should be something that we have to do. So I'd like to ask this last question about your perspective on why, the reasons why Korea scores so low, and also in that regard, what should be done, both from Korea and from ASEAN countries. And as this is our last questions, and you can say anything you want other than this kind of fun work. So now the same order I'd like to ask Mr. Teresa.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Lee. I myself was surprised at the low numbers for Korea, very, very truthfully. And it may surprise a lot of people because Korea's soft power influence in the last decade is everywhere. It's overwhelming at times. But it also, I think, shows that there is more to building a positive and lasting perception and a sustainable perception than just content popularity. So there must be more, and more has to be done. I feel, therefore, there is a need for more impactful and sustainable policies that will help elevate the positive perception of Korea within the ASEAN region. I'm going to start with some suggestions, but I'm going to start with some low-hanging fruit. Some things that can be done and are actually already being done and perhaps just need to be upgraded or enhanced or increased in various measures. The first is cross-cultural familiarization. For ASEAN to appreciate Korea more and for Korea to appreciate ASEAN more, cross-cultural education and language. Training programs, for example, for ASEAN residents, for nationals of ASEAN countries in Korea is very important. All of us, most of us in ASEAN have quite significant numbers of our overseas nationals living, residing, working, studying in this country, and they do build very important influence and reach. They're all over social media, at least in our case. They're on TikTok, they're on all these social media platforms, they're on SNS, and this is grassroots perception, which is very important. So cross-cultural familiarization and more programs along this area could help. public diplomacy campaigns is another low-hanging fruit, and there's so much material and content that could be used to promote a more positive and a better perception and a better appreciation. But I feel it cannot be just purely Korean content, but also focus on the connections between ASEAN and Korea, both individual countries in ASEAN and the region as a whole and Korea. Another low-hanging fruit, education, scholarships, training opportunities, joint research opportunities, expansion of scholarship programs, training programs, joint research programs, and support services for ASEAN students in Korea. And I think a lot of our students here mentioned something along this line during the successful ASEAN Youth Conference co-organized by the AKC and the ACS, led by our chair for this for the first half of this year, Malaysia. And this is really low-hanging fruit. And now I'll move into more difficult, more complex, and more challenging strategies, perhaps, to address this surprisingly low public perception in ASEAN of Korea. One is media and representation. I think we should encourage a more balanced representation of ASEAN nationals here in Korea to counter stereotypes and also to foster empathy and greater appreciation for the personal connections. This is the third pillar of ASEAN, essentially, the social cultural pillar, people-to-people exchanges. But it's also very important as Korea moves into multicultural territory, having reached the 2 million foreign residents mark last December. So I think it's a direction that Korea should look at more deeply, more seriously, and with more focus. My last intervention is perhaps the most challenging of all, and this is to review labor and migration and mobility issues of ASEAN nationals, whether this is for workers from the ASEAN region, whether it's for students, academics, researchers, whether it's for marriage migrants, of which an increasing number come from the ASEAN region, from many of the countries in the ASEAN region, and students, of course, and even for tourists, for visitors here to Korea coming from the ASEAN region. I think it's very important to really look at the mobility policies in terms of immigration, in terms of labor, because this really feeds into grassroots perception of our relations. How much do we really value our relationship? So this is seen in the way that we treat each other, and not just in terms of treatment of in terms of official exchanges, but I think more importantly, in terms of ensuring that ASEAN nationals feel welcome in Korea, in the same way that Korean nationals feel welcome in our countries, in our individual countries, in our region. So, but I think that's a much more complex thing, because it impacts the economy. It impacts security issues. It impacts a lot of other aspects of our relations. But I think it should be addressed more comprehensively. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Now I'd like to come to Mr. Sokane.
Looking at the timing, so I have maybe 1-2 minutes. I'm going to very briefly first. Speaking after our very comprehensive thinker, I agree with many of the points that she mentioned there. But just referring to the Singapore think tanks, I think I every year also have some responding to that questionnaire. But the way they took up the questions to make it difficult to have a prominence of Korea there. Yes, let's say like that. I disagree with it. I maybe that 3%, but I think the way they put the questionnaire is making it difficult for us to choose. So many answers you have to do. You like it or not, but you still need to put something there. That's first thing. I think you can go to all any ASEAN countries. Our people know Korean. This is for sure. Even though in the countryside, your non-for-profit has been very active in helping our schools, helping the children for education, for other things. So I think more ASEAN people know about Korean people. Considering about Korean people know more about ASEAN or not, that's I'm not sure. But certainly we welcome many Korean visitors visiting our countries. But you see, I left Laos about 7 years ago. Now we have Korean towns, small Korean towns in Vientiane. That's and public accept it well. So meaning that the perception about Korean image in our ASEAN countries, there is nothing wrong. And there is no political issue between ASEAN and Korea. That's always there. So I think the perception of ASEAN people to Korean is good. But on Korean side, you do a lot on the young people level. But have you done at the very young level? Primary school. In ASEAN, we have public awareness in the school to make our students, our young students, know about ASEAN more. I think this can be another additional from our ambassadors, suggesting that maybe Korean need to educate very young people to know more about ASEAN instead of. That's my very brief question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sokan. And now I will talk to Mr. Chang.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Sokan that in ASEAN countries we do have a high perception of Korea and Koreans in general. As far as the survey that you mentioned by ICS and Yusof Institute, well, basically it reveals that ROK fares relatively low in several categories such as championing global free trade, economic power influence, leadership to maintain rules-based order, etc. But South Korea fares well and the favorite holiday destination and order of strategic relevance to ASEAN among the 11 dialogue partners. So that's quite something to me. As the reasons that you were asking, I would say the first reason would be ROK is often perceived as a reactive player in ASEAN diplomacy and always overshadowed by China, the US, and Japan. While ROK may have its own Indo-Pacific strategy and Korea ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, KASI, the implementation and synergy with ASEAN frameworks remain unclear to many policymakers. Case in point would be KASI, which was seen as a regression from the previous policy, namely new Southern Policy NSP, which has more pronounced emphasis on ASEAN. And reason two, I would say ROK is always regarded as an important trading partner for ASEAN, but not a leading economic architect in the region. Lacking in terms of distinctive economic cooperation narrative in comparison to China's Belt and Road Initiative or Japan's infrastructure diplomacy. Essentially, it is a question of visibility and influence. While we are talking about the perception of ROK in ASEAN countries, I also, as mentioned by Mr. Sakani, would like to gauge the perception of Koreans on ASEAN countries. Basically, in reverse, I can say that it is about the same of the Korean population perception of ASEAN. ASEAN is not very well known by Koreans as a group. And one of the reasons I would say is the lack of this political discourse by Korean politicians, as opposed to what they are talking about other countries like China, North Korea, Japan, Russia, or the US. We can see that in the run-up of the presidential election, which is going to be on the 3rd of June. Actually, I haven't seen any of the candidates have talked about ASEAN actually. Although I was made to understand that in the PPP manifesto, they mentioned something about ASEAN, but to a lesser extent as opposed to other countries. Well, I suppose this is understandable because these countries are always basically the immediate neighbors and also wield significant influence on South Korea. But with the current political and economic situation landscape, ASEAN can be used as a moderating influence in our foreign policy, and this should be made known or educated more to the public by politicians or administrators. I would like to quote actually one anecdotal evidence that always been mentioned by our good friend Eric Teo of Singapore. Basically, he mentioned that in his over the past 6 years he has been here, in his interactions with most of the politicians and administrators, basically they all have positive thinking about ASEAN, as opposed to the countries I mentioned, because they have a varying degrees of affection or even enmity towards them. And as well, this perception toward ASEAN, no matter from which political spectrum, is, as I mentioned, is overwhelmingly positive. Nonetheless, this does not translate into the political discourse. Some might argue that the lack of the political discourse on ASEAN is basically because we are there already, so no need to mention. But this actually doesn't educate the public, and it doesn't make our work much easier. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, last but not least, Ambassador Tani, your final view and your words.
Thank you for having me last. I don't have the words of my long message. Let me run a quick. We were quite surprised by the report. We think that the people ties between ASEAN, including Thailand, and they're okay. The people ties are the background of our nation. Korean culture, as you know, is very popular in our region in Thailand. Almost 2 million Koreans visited Thailand last year. Even more visited Vietnam, and even more, many more visited many other ASEAN countries. So, we don't have a problem in that regard. 50,000 Thai students study the Korean language in the high school. So, please do not, beat yourself up because of this report. But there are suggestions that we can have. For example, we hit the nail right on the head. Elevate economic cooperation, especially through trade and investment between our countries and our region. Number two is to promote education and exchange between our countries, our people, especially this urgent need to increase the number of Thai students, ASEAN students in the market. Number three, improve the situation, improve the data. The data application, the refusal of entry of ASEAN nationals, especially in Thailand. Over 400 Thai nationals have been denied entry last year. And that's just according to true values. And many of these people are not illegal workers, they are social influencers. So you see in the social media the negative impact that Korea has already received, and we need cooperation from Korean agencies concerned. Number 4 is our embassy has been working very hard in promoting people-to-people relationship. We have facilitated the establishment of our community organizations, especially our Thai Massage Association, World Thai Association, the Thai Student Association, and lastly our Women Council, Thai Women Council in Korea. There are sources of with Korean families all over the country, and they are the perfect diplomatic agents of our goodwill between the countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dani.
4 more minutes.
Now we have about 5 minutes, and in this time, still I want to have this question and answer session, even though it's brief. And I think you can not only ask questions, but also you can make your own comment and share your own views on the subject that we discussed. So if there is anyone who wants to take the floor, please identify yourself and ask questions.
Thank you very much for your great discussion. My name is jejuforum from Korea University, ASEAN Deep Research Institute. On the matter of perception, I also personally greatly shocked by the survey. How come Korea can be ranking 7 among the 11 dialogue partners? So, I'm greatly depressed, and then I'm thinking again. One of the reasons I found out, one sample, maybe you know the two theory, melting pot theory and salad theory, which means ASEAN is not only foreign country, because ASEAN is a flavor inside the Korean society, because they are great workforce in Korea as well, not only tourists, but also students, also workforce. And one good example from the New Zealand, one of my close friend teaching Korean language in New Zealand. She has got funded by New Zealand government. Teaching Korean language, New Zealand government supporting. This is one great example of salad theory. So, like mosaic. One thing Korean government need to reflect. How come Korea ranking 7? As a Korean ranking 7, greatly lost face. And maybe something wrong. Korean government may be applying too much melting pot theory. Try to teaching Korean language more. Greatly teaching more Korean culture. Actually, that's not bad. That's good. Doesn't mean bad. But on the other hand, maybe did not wanted to listen, wanted to learn. Maybe wanted to provide more chance to ASEAN neighbors to teaching their culture to Korean people. Maybe learn from. That's one of the my assumption. Maybe it can help some part. Okay.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. I think it's a useful observation and also advice. I'd like to also have some more questions and comments on these discussions. Is there any? So, and Mr. Kim, he was my predecessor.
Regarding your third question, ASEAN's perception of Korea, I want to agree with Ambassador Songkane. The questions are wrongly structured. For example, if you ask ourselves, which country has the most impact on ASEAN politically? They naturally say China, America, something like that. Which country is most important to ASEAN economically?
then China, something like that. And which country do you want to go for your study? English-speaking countries, mainly America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Even though many ASEANs love Korea, they do not want to study Korea. Why? Because Korean language is not so widely spoken in the world. But on the other hand, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they can provide English language. So naturally, it's not bias against Korea by ASEAN people. I think, and ASEAN people in general love Korea and they like Korea. I think we have to understand and we should not take that ISIS too serious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kim. He's a very straightforward person. So I think his question provoked another response. I see Mr. Puho of Vietnam want to say a few words or comment or question.
First, let me thank Ambassador Kim, Ambassador Lee for raising and organizing this very important event. And actually, I spent almost 30 years of my life in dealing with ASEAN business. And 20 years of that, 30 years, dealing with dialogue partners, Korea included. So I would think that I have all the authority to say that Korea is the best headache for us. That's the least headache from all the dialogue partners that we have. If you look at the European Union, if you look at China, you look at Japan, all that. And in Korea we have less to fight, less to train, if I can put it that way. Now that's number one. Number two, we established a CSP last year, which is a good thing. But is that a real thing now? That's the question. But I put the question, for example, let me take this one to address your question about bilateral and multilateral. What happened in Korea in December? The martial law, who did you contact first? US, China, Japan, European Union, ASEAN, never. That's the question about the confidence, about the mutual respect, about the mutual understanding. Where ASEAN is lining up in the priority of Korea foreign policy, or is just a land to invest, to make their business, to make the trade, and ASEAN is nothing. That's the question that I'm asking, because you change the name of the relationship every 4 years. You start with SCSI, just now the Southern policy, and then extend the Southern policy. Will you change the name of your child every 4 years? That's the question. That's the question of consistency in the policy. That I'm putting now, people to people connectivity. Are we really partners? Ambassador Tanya, Ambassador Teresa, Ambassador Songka. How many citizens of ASEAN countries been turning away from entering Korea? How many? How many Vietnamese nationals are being hunted down by Korean police out of the street? Although we have a community here for 350,000 people, and still being something that's not equal to the Korean citizen. Of course, we are not asking to be equal, but some kind of respect be paid. Let me be very straight. People to people connectivity. CSP is not an empty word. It has to do something. Here, politically, let's say that within us we have open speaking about all the issues that we have in the region. South China Sea, for example. How many times Korea share with us information on how we handle the issue on the Yellow Sea? Never. Japan, of course, never. But that's the problem of equality in the relationship that I try to pose for all of us to deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Buho, for very frank and also that I think I take it constructive comments. And now it is time to wrap up of our discussion today. And I think we addressed all these three aspects of Korea's relations in a good way, substantial way. We made a landmark in Korea-ASEAN relations last year by establishing CSP, really a landmark. And we discussed how we implement this political willingness into realization. And we discussed, and one of the discussion for that, the answer for that was the synergy between ASEAN bilateral and also ASEAN multilateral, and the role of ACS, ASEAN Committee in Seoul. And I listened carefully to Mr. Buho about the frustration or difficulties and challenges from ASEAN side. And I think there can be a role of ACS in resolving these difficulties and addressing these challenges at hand. So I think it was relevant, and also the like it or not, it's a fact. The report of ISES is a fact. So I think we have to take some learning or lesson from them and what we have to do. So all these combined with the critical subject we discussed on CSP. So I really appreciate our excellent esteemed panelists and also our participants. We have ASEAN ambassadors here. All ambassadors are here. That shows your affection and your enthusiasm and agreement. So now, before I conclude this session, I'd like to turn to our Secretary General, Ambassador Kim Jae-shin, for his final words. And listening to him, I'd like to conclude the session. Thank you so much, panelists and ambassadors. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lee, and distinguished speakers and all the participants for your active participation in these sessions. We designed, the purpose of the designing of this session is how to improve our relationship between Korea and ASEAN countries. And I am very, very satisfied the outcome of today's forum. And I made up my mind to continue this kind of our forum, including the next year's jejuforum. But only the last part of the discussions different directions, but I very much appreciate your frank comments on the Korean government's policy on the ASEAN and ASEAN member countries. That's of course, I used to work at the foreign ministry. I summarize your very important comments, and I convey these things to my colleagues who are still working in the foreign ministry. As you know, the foreign ministry is here. I think I have a chance to talk to him over the dinner tonight. But including the foreign minister, I'm calling your suggestions. Your suggestions to my colleagues, and we continue to try to improve our bilateral and multilateral relationship between ASEAN member countries and ASEAN. Thank you so much for your active participation.
Thank you, Excellency. This concludes the 86th session titled Beyond Boundaries, Strengthening ASEAN-Korea Synergies under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Once again, we extend our sincere gratitude to all participants for joining us here in Jeju. It has been a meaningful opportunity to hear from the ambassadors who have the first-hand experience as diplomats and shape the relationship between ASEAN and Korea. As we part ways, I wish you a safe and pleasant journey home. Once again, thank you very much.